You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out riveting.com.
Fun fact, did you know that Sweitzer actually means Swiss person?
It does, yeah.
Still pretty cool, though. You can drop that at a party and, just puff yourself up a little bit. Like, anybody else here a published author? Okay.
Well, if I drop this 114 pages on someone, it's not going to hurt them, so...
Yeah, I think the message here is just be cognizant of this, because the huge risk in this business, if you're like, I'm going to go all in on short-term rentals and I'm going to do that in one city, then you're literally putting all of your eggs in one basket.
So my property manager was in Florida last year. He rented a boat, and Austin Compton, and he went ahead and hit a mega yacht with the front of it.
Oh. And, about like 1/1,000,000th of a million.
This is funny. She goes, this seems like a really good benefit for taxpayers. Today's episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions. We have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE-CLOSE, or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to REIA Radio, episode 123 with Jimmy Sweitzer, a.k.a. Badass Rapper. So, Owen's been listening to some of your jams, some of your best jams, and we were really kind of hoping that you would just lead the podcast with dropping some beats.
Well, we didn't know if all failed rappers or frustrated rappers end up as book authors, or if that had anything to do with the other. So, do you want to maybe elaborate on your career so far as a rapper?
Well, it's it started at a young age when I decided that it would be really funny to make raps for presentations in school, and so no, I'm not very good at it. I can put some words together, but it is a long history. It was always a fun and exciting presentation that I would give, where you see me just like I am, trying to lay it down, and I've been made fun of it before, but it is a fun thing that I do from time to time.
So I think Ted's going to link to some of your rap videos in the show notes.
I hate linking in the show notes.
I'm laughing because right before we started recording, he's like, hey, I really don't know what I'm doing with linking to stuff in the show notes. Can you maybe hold back on that? So I just come right out of the gate with it. Anyway, so published author, let's talk about that. What is Shut the Five Up? What does that mean, and what's it about?
I know what I think it means, but it's not five up, that's for sure.
Okay, nobody cares.
I wanted a controversial kind of title, and sometimes the title comes before the book, which is very rare. In this case, it did. Because I was here's my book. Actually, it's Shut the Five Up, and it's basically a guide to finding ultimate peace. And so it's sitting still for 5 minutes, something that not a lot of people do at all. Clearing your mind and just making sure that you're really starting the day off on the right foot. So it's I'm a man of faith and a spiritual guy. It's not prayer. It is sitting and meditating for 5 minutes and letting any thought that comes in your mind, just releasing it. And it really helps you get started for the day.
Do you use any apps or like guided meditation, or like what's your process there? I'm curious. And I know we have some listeners, I'm sure, out there that have kind of the Miracle Morning thing and do meditation as kind of a practice. And I've messed around with it. I'm not great at it. So what maybe elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I found out about it to begin with is it was actually at a Bible study group, and our leader basically said, hey, close your eyes. We're going to not think about anything for 5 minutes. Well, if you're not thinking about anything, you are thinking about something, right?
And Jimmy goes, shut the five up, Pastor.
Say what?
And Jimmy's like, "Shut the 5 up, Pastor."
Yeah, exactly. So we're sitting there, and it was just clear your mind, just sit still and and enjoy the moment. And it was very difficult to do. It was something that I got something out of though, and started researching kind of meditation and different things. And then I came up with a title of instead of shut the up, it's shut the 5 up, and it's taking 5 minutes a day to just sit in silence and meditate. I don't know if I answered your question on that. Maybe went off on a little tangent, but
I don't know.
We never do that. We never do that on this podcast. How dare you?
I don't know how Christian it is to be saying "shut the 5 up."
Well, and that's fair enough. In all respects, I believe that Jesus in the temple was probably using cuss words. He wasn't using the Lord's name in vain, but he was mad and he was angry, and he experienced the emotions that we experience today. So
yeah,
I hear you there, but
I'm just giving you a hard time, man.
I know.
So how long did it take you to crank out that book?
Several years, but once I really decided to put my head down and kind of go after it, it really came together in just a few months. So I guess it's a great learning experience that if you put your mind to anything, you can get it done in much quicker time than you think. And so kind of dragging my feet on that, and then finally it came out of me. So.
And everybody that writes a book, I mean, they're obviously extremely wealthy because of the proceeds. I mean, how many millions do you think you've made off of it?
About like 1/1,000,000th of a million. So on this book, I make about $2 if you go and buy it. So it is not something that made me a bunch of money, but it was something that was cool to do. I'm a published author. Who would have thought? I can't SPEL. So, with that being said.
Well, we were interviewing some Bigger Pockets authors, and I think they said some of them are making like 47 cents off each book.
Oh man, I'm rolling in at $2 then.
It's very disheartening to hear that, because I think the assumption is, or at least I always had it ever since I was a kid. I was like, oh man, if you can publish a book, you got the gravy train coming. You know what I mean? You're going to be rolling in the dough if people like the book. No, not at all, really.
No, you really have to have a promotion machine behind it to really get to that next level. And usually people use a book more almost as a business card nowadays. Or at least that's been, my case.
Yeah.
So
still pretty cool though. You can drop that at a party and, just puff yourself up a little bit. Like, anybody else are a published author? Okay.
Well, if I drop this 114 pages on someone, it's not going to hurt them. So.
So tell us about, let's see, B&B Ace. What is it? How did you come up with it? Maybe kind of lead us down the path.
Sure. So it is basically, we provide great solutions for investors of short-term rental properties. Usually people who are self-managing 3 or 4 properties at a time. They want to free up their time. It's all time-consuming to run these properties. They want to make more money, and they really just want to find a professional who can handle it all. Well, where do you turn to if you're looking for someone to manage your property? You probably go on Google. You maybe go on some Facebook pages, different things like that. Ask a friend, phone a friend. Hey, who are you using?
Meditate about it, whatever.
Yep, exactly.
So B&B Ace is a management company, is that right? So a third party short-term rental management.
No, we actually find managers. We're more of a recruiter. We're like a C-level corporate recruiting company where we find the best of the best STRMs, which we call short-term rental managers, across the country. We have about 150 on board at the moment and growing every day. But we are able to actually pair the investor up who needs management with a fantastic and amazing manager in that area. So we're not managing properties across the country because I don't believe in that personally. I know that some listeners may, but you really want boots on the ground. You want someone who knows that area better than anybody, and we go and find that individual for you, saving you time, money, and energy.
What makes a great property manager in this category? Because I use a property manager for a portion of my short terms, and I don't have anything to compare to. So, if you looked at the 150 plus people that you work with, who's the one person that blew you away, and what's the extra steps that they are doing to make their business stand out from everybody else?
I don't know that there's one individual that we have that's head and shoulders above everyone, because I truly believe that the people that we bring on are the top 1% across the board. And so if you're comparing, John over here in Oklahoma to Susie over here in Florida, as far as the knowledge of what they know in the area, they are the top notch. And so that's, again, why we're able to really shortcut that process. To more directly answer your question, I mean, it's how do you get bookings when things are going bad? Because there's always off season, right? There's always a time when, you're not getting the bookings. It could be January, February in our business. It could be, whatever months it is. But what are you doing to be creative and get those bookings? How are you handling problems? What does your maintenance team look like? What systems do you have in place? And if you don't have an answer to any of these questions, then you're not doing a very good job managing, in my opinion. What's your, pricing strategy? What do you do on weekends and weekdays and holidays? And, are you using a dynamic pricing tool, or is it static pricing? Dynamic pricing's got to be the way that it goes. And so we've actually identified 25 different areas that, make a great manager. I hit on a few of them, but actually on the link, I think that if you figure out how to put it in the in the description or whatever, there'll be a link that any of your listeners can actually go to, and they can get this resource for free. This actually over my shoulder here, this 7 Steps to STR Mastery, that would be a free book or reference. It's about 25 pages of just jam-packed knowledge of how you can go and really take your business and your self-managing to the next level. So definitely click on the link, down in the bottom of the podcast, so that you guys can have access to that cool tool.
One thing that I've talked to my property manager, I'm like, hey, you guys, do a pretty good job. I've been using it for years, but it'd be cool if you guys gave me some guidance as a new property manager to tell me that, or provided the service to say that here's a guest book. I never had guest books in my properties, so I just actually took on my own management of my own property for the first time. And I have a guest book, QR code that I put in there, and I like, oh, here's all the fancy places to stay. Here's your code to your gun safe that's in the bedroom. You don't put gun safes in your bedroom, and so
They're just called safes.
I have a gun. I put a gun safe in there. A lot of people conceal carries and they have kids. I thought it'd be smart to put a gun safe in there. I did some reading on it, and it says a good one. But then you got people that use managers, and they might click off that on their calendar that they don't want to have any appointments, and block off all their Airbnb.
Hey, it was a good try to make fun of me, but I think you whiffed on that one, buddy.
Yeah.
So
that's a safe bet, Owen.
I think this is interesting to me because I have a 20-year recruiting background. So I started out as an agency recruiter. I did IT recruiting, eventually got into corporate HR and recruiting. And so I'm very familiar with that space. Why was this idea born? Was it out of frustration because you were looking for your own property management for an Airbnb, or what? Like, is that kind of what spurred the idea?
Great question. So we basically, I had an opportunity to speak on a national panel. This was back about 6 months ago or so. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. So first off, I was told, hey, it's going to be local. It's going to be 20 to 30 people, and it'll be in person. About 3 days before the event, they said, hey, this is going to be national. And, it's going to be, basically, on Zoom. And I'm thinking, all right, so I do great in person. I love the face-to-face that we're having right now. But, like an in-person kind of presentation is more my, cup of tea. But I said, all right, well, how do I take advantage of this? And so I created a website the night before, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this contact information, but let me just create a quick little contact form. And, that's really kind of how the business was born. There was 171 people on the call, and we ended up with about 10 leads. And again, I'm like, well, what do I do with these? And I came up with the idea that it made sense. I have a network of about 150 managers across the country. I have courses I've taken. It really kind of just came about because of a need that I saw, especially on this call. People just had no idea what to do on managing their own properties, and they wanted to find a professional manager. And, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on courses and different things that I'm, part of Mastermind and different groups that ultimately I was able to plug into and say, hey, Joe up in Chicago, this person needs management. And we were able to work out a deal and make things happen. So it really came out of necessity, but came out of something as a, amazing kind of opportunity that I received.
Now, if you don't mind, how do you get compensated? Are you paid by the person that is looking for the manager, or are you paid by the management company as a fee for referral?
Yeah, another good question there. So on the investor side, so anyone who comes on board and just says, "Hey, Jimmy, I need a manager," there's no cost. You couldn't spend money with us if you wanted to. So we work out a deal with the manager to make sure that that we're getting paid and they're getting paid. But then the investor is getting the best of the best as far as the managers go, for sure.
Now, with the pay, is it like a one-time deal, or are you getting compensated for life? Like every time there's a booking for life?
It really depends. We set different things up with different managers. And so it typically is more on the lifetime of the client. And the benefit to that to everyone involved is if the manager's not who the investor needs, we're able to replace them with somebody else. But we're part of that. We're providing resources to the managers so that they can go and grow their business. And so it just makes sense for us to continue to be hands-on while the manager's handling kind of everything on the ground, boots on the ground, if you will. We're providing them resources so that they can go grow their business and they can provide the best of the best service to the investors.
I was looking over some of your background, doing a little light stalking, and I noticed that it looked like you were raising a little bit of money to start this business originally. Is that right?
Yes.
So did that end up working out as the way to kind of like fund it and get operations up off the ground and all that?
You'd be surprised how, the answer it was yes. But you'd be surprised how a social media post, even on Facebook or something, can really boost your business. And I have a big following of people on Facebook, and it was kind of a friend of a friend who saw a post who put me in contact with the current investor that we have. And we are still looking for another investor. I don't know when you'll be listening to this or not, but reach out to us because there could be opportunities to be a part of something that we find to be just amazing kind of amazing opportunity. So
yeah, that's cool. And I guess more specifically, did you end up doing just debt for that, or was this debt and equity, or just equity, or just debt?
Yeah, we did a equity deal. So a small percentage. We only gave up 5% for what we were looking for. And so right now that made sense. And we may go the debt route, on the next round. We don't know. But it's nice to have a partner in the business, someone who is a minority, stakeholder. It keeps your feet to the fire. You got to make sure that you're performing for them, and really motivates you to do so. But it also is a resource. The gentleman that we brought on board is great at some different kinds of businesses and has been able to help us and been instrumental on kind of some of the things we had set up behind the scenes that we didn't really know fully the best way of going. So he kind of has become an advisor as well.
Well, when you get on Shark Tank and get Mark Cuban or somebody on, we'll link that in the show notes so that way people can check out that episode.
If you can figure out how to link in the show notes, go for it.
Ted, he is a world famous rapper. He doesn't need to go on Shark Tank. Okay, he already has a following.
But you could do a rap walking into Shark Tank and then blow up both businesses at the same time. What?
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Usually my raps are not memorized, so I'm usually reading something that I created a day before.
Jimmy, what cities are you guys operating in right now?
So we have business all across the country. The managers that we have are from coast to coast. We even have someone in Hawaii. I don't believe we have anyone in Alaska. So we have the kind of 49 states, and we don't have every state covered. But we basically, as we see there's a need, as an investor raises their hand and says, "Hey, we need management," with the network that I've created and continue to work on, we can find a manager in anywhere. The smallest city that we have that I know of is Demarest, Georgia. And if you're from Demarest, say whoop whoop, because population like 5,500. But we were able to find a amazing manager who could help help the investor in a city as small as population 5,500. So yeah, we have business all across the country.
Hey, quick question that I just thought of when you mentioned Hawaii. Did you see or do you know about what just happened there with the legislation they passed? I thought I saw earlier this week or last week that I want to say it was in Hawaii, the entire state, but maybe it was just one of the islands or part of it. But I want to say they were banning Airbnbs.
Yeah, no, I'm usually up and up on that kind of stuff, but I did not hear that. Legislation can be a crazy thing.
It might have been a couple of days ago that I saw it, but I know it just kind of popped up in my news feed, and I was just, that is such we've talked about different, places where this stuff has happened, like Kansas City. They did that not too long ago. Have you run into that in other locations where you're like, oh yeah, I've got these customers and this management company, and all of a sudden they're just like, boom, no more?
Yes, that regulations are one of the biggest things. The two things that I would encourage people to not get into the short-term rental world. And I love STRs. I love this space. I've been in it for 7 years. It's a passion of mine. But two reasons not to get into it simply is because the owner or you maybe want to sell the house. So that just happens. There's nothing that you can do about that, right? But the second thing is regulations. And, I don't believe that across the country that short-term rental regulations will be, passed, completely, because there's touristy areas, there's places that will always have short-term rentals, but they're cracking down on some different things. And overall, I find that to be a good thing. If it were me and I had like a property in a place that all of a sudden the regulations changed and I couldn't do short-term rental, I'd figure something else out. Be that, midterm or long-term. With a property, you want to have multiple options on things. But regulations are definitely something that can be a scary thing in that space. But it also provides opportunities for the best of the best to kind of rise to the top.
To back up what you just said, Owen, I remember when we interviewed Alex Camacho, he talked about his place in Maui, and he said that he could not Airbnb it, and that he was excited when he found out a renter that could move in that got affected by those fires.
But remember, that sounds familiar.
But remember, he's like, guys, I'm spending like $5,000-$6,000 a month in rent on this place, and he's like, and we couldn't Airbnb in that area.
Huh.
So
I wonder if that was in Lahaina, where the fires happened, or close to it, or something.
It was like, all I know is it was a few blocks from Brandon Turner's place, because he said he was like Brandon's neighbor.
Yeah, I think the message here is just be cognizant of this, because the huge risk in this business, if you're like, I'm going to go all in on short-term rentals and I'm going to do that in one city, then you're literally putting all of your eggs in one basket, because you have no idea what city is going to, you'll probably hear rumblings about it, but it might be too late by the time you're already, investing in it. If you put all your eggs in one basket in one city, you're really, really exposing yourself to a lot of risk that you have no control over whatsoever because of legislation and politics.
Thanks, Owen. I feel really comfortable now.
Yeah. Just saying, I may know a couple of people like this already. You maybe give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I see that. I see the thumbs up too. That's definitely something to keep an eye out on. The best managers in the areas, they know the regulations and they know what's coming down the pipeline, and that's why I encourage people to find that manager. On the other side, it's, well, how can I get creative with this? Like Charleston as an example, Charleston, South Carolina, basically banned all short-term rentals unless it's owner occupied. Well, some of these houses were big enough to where they had a place above the garage. They moved their cleaner into that space and they continued to Airbnb it because it met regulations. So it had to be owner occupied. They put the name of the house in the owner. This is a true story. And she was the cleaner. And so they not only was it creative, but it provided even more amenities to the guest, because now you have someone on site who can address any need that you have just like that. And so getting creative with it and having an out on any kind of real estate deal always makes sense.
It's so funny that imagine the amount of time and conversations that people that were trying to get this legislation passed went through, right? You're probably talking hundreds, if not thousands of collective hours where they're like, all right, let's brainstorm. What is any possible scenario that could happen where somebody's going to try to work around this? And they're like, I feel pretty good about this. Let's pass it. And they take it to the governor or the mayor or whatever they have to do to get it passed. I have no idea, obviously. And then they're like, yes, okay, let's sign this into law. And then somebody like you is like, hey, let's move a maid in. And then they're all like, damn it. Like, just sitting in one room, like, why didn't you think of that, Charles? He's like, I didn't know. Yeah, anyway, Sorry, this all played out in my head while you were talking.
It's amazing what you do when they're starting to take your money out of your pocket.
Right?
Oh, no, it's true. You find a way. There's I don't want to talk about loopholes, but there's always some sort of way to make things happen. And whether that's good, bad, or ugly, I think it's a good thing because it allows you to be creative. I'm a creative person. I love when I heard that story. I was like, man, I wish I'd thought of that. Now I don't have properties in that area, but it's still just like, oh man, I'm not doing a good enough job thinking outside the box here. So.
Well, this might be a good segue here, actually. You mentioned you didn't have properties in that area, but let's talk about your personal investing. How'd you get into real estate originally? What's it look like now for you?
Sure. First and foremost, the only property we have that we've invested in is our own. I went out and purposefully wanted to have to manage properties. I know this may get into like a funny story, but either way, you like funny stories. All right, good. So my wife and I got started with Airbnb probably like 9 years ago, something like that. And we were literally renting out a room in our house, and it was paying for the mortgage, which was fantastic. So it was awesome. It was really a really good thing. But we had basically common areas. Yeah.
Did your wife fight you on this at all? Because there's no way in hell I could get somebody to move into our house with my wife it's not even on the table. Like, was this like an issue, or is she just like gun ho, let's do it?
I would need to ask her, but I'm pretty sure she came up with the idea. So maybe roles reversal on that one between our spouses.
Either that, or you're just a master gaslighter.
Yeah.
He's been reading.
You're like, these are not the droids you're looking for.
He's been reading a lot of Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
I don't remember. All right, I'll just go with I don't remember. I plead the fifth on who got the idea started. But most definitely what she loved about it is that I had to keep the house clean because we never knew when guests were coming. So we had Instant Book on and different things like that, so guests could book day of. So the place literally looked great all the time. And I'm not the neatest person in the world, so I know that she enjoyed that benefit of it. But it was paying our mortgage. I mean, who could complain about that? It was literally paying the bills with one bedroom in our house. And we had some amazing guests. We also had some crazy guests. There was a hurricane it was, obviously when we were doing this.
We definitely want to know about the crazy guest. Like, well, you got a crazy one?
Yeah. Hang on real quick. Little do you know that your wife actually has 150 different Airbnb profiles of guests, and she just like wants the house cleaned. It's just like, new guest booking today. Hey, honey, better get on that. Chop, chop.
Special rate, $29 a night.
Sorry, please continue.
Either way, I have an amazing wife, so there's the plug. There's a hurricane, that was hitting South Carolina area and was affecting one of the military bases down there. I won't give much more detail because if the person's watching, I don't want them to know that it was him. But they basically had to leave the base, and so him and his wife came to our house and they stayed for a week. We got a little bit tired of them because they were in our common areas, which was advertised. But most people were coming for like the concert, or they're going to be there for 2 days, or it wasn't like let's sit up and kick it up and relax because they're basically on vacation in a sense, or they don't have to do anything for a week. And we basically had them booked for 2 weeks. So we had to kind of put up with these guys, and they were just in our way. And so I was like, Aaron, let's get out of here. Let's go up to my parents' cabin and just like relax and take a few days off. Great idea. Except we left them there. Not a great idea. So after this nice relaxing mountain vacation, it was really great. Weather was perfect. I mean, just really a good getaway. We come rolling into the neighborhood. We didn't live far into the neighborhood. And I go, is that our house? And Aaron's like, it is. And I'm like, oh my goodness. This guy is blaring music middle of the day during like a weekday. So when people are working, you just imagine this. He's smoking a cigarette. Okay. Our house was no smoking. And he's wearing nothing but his whitey tighties and literally standing in the middle of the driveway. Our neighborhood had literally had 1,000 houses in it. And there was 4 entrances and stuff, and we were one of the main entrances. So I don't know how many hundreds of people saw him, even in the short amount of time or long amount of time that he was out there. But he's just smoking a cigarette, and he's just listening to his music and, jamming out in his whitey tighties. And we had to kick him out of the house. I hate doing it to him. He's served our country. I'm all about, the troops and what they do for us. But we just can't handle that. And so it was an interesting conversation to have. But we found housing for him, and everything was good. But, man, it was a sight to see.
So you didn't get a 5-star review?
I don't know that he knew how to leave reviews, so I didn't leave one for him. He didn't leave one for me. It was all good.
I gotta bring up a funny story about similar to what you're talking about, except I think I've mentioned this before on a different episode, but I live in a smaller town next to Omaha, so it's like literally like 7 minutes from downtown Omaha, but it's a lake community, and there's only about 4,000 or so as a population, so it's kind of a small town next to a city. And I have a guy that lives 3 doors down from me, who's a great dude. He's a real estate investor, and he was renting out a room in his house. And Carter Lake, which is the name of the town that I live in, they banned short-term rentals just on a whim all of a sudden. And then it went to evidently I don't quote me on this, but I think it went to the Supreme Court in Iowa, where it's located, and they threw it out because they said it was like, I don't know if it was unconstitutional or whatever, but they basically said you can't decide this and whatever, and it like went up, and so sure enough they're good again. But he was renting out, my buddy who lives 3 doors down was renting out a room in their house. And one morning I wake up, and it's early, and I go to let my dog out, and it's probably, I don't know, like 5:30, 6 a.m., but the sun's, coming up, so it's light. And there's a dude in my like Chase Lounger right outside my slider, my basement slider. He's just chilling, like not completely dead to the world. He was hammered from the night before. And so anyway, I end up yelling like over and over again. And finally I like clap right by his face, and we're like, hey, he wakes up all startled, and he's like looking around trying to figure out what's going on, because he's just a mess. And he's like, I went out last night, got messed up, forgot where the house was. I thought I was close. I looked around, couldn't find it. Then I went into,
he's like, your neighbor was hosting Airbnb. This wasn't your guest.
Correct. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So my neighbor, and I don't know any of this, right? I just know there's a guy in my chair, and I know my wife is going to freak out, right? Like, what is like, we need to get cameras. We need, whatever. Like, I just could tell this was going to happen. But so I yell at the guy, and he's like stumbling off. He's like trying to explain himself, and I'm pissed. And I'm just like, get off my property, idiot. Like, what are you doing? So he leaves, and he's like, yeah, I go, oh, really? What? Okay. So what was the address? What, I'm grilling him, and he's like probably foggy from bong hits and Jaeger the night before, and can't piece anything together. He's like, it was 10, like 13 Shoal, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's actually an address. Okay, maybe he's telling the truth. So I text my friend that has this deal, and he's like, I go, did you by chance have an Airbnb guest last night? And he's like, oh, did you hear from him? Like, we were so worried he never came home last night, because he's renting a room, right? So he's like coming in their main door, which is, I don't know, man. I think you're a little crazy for that, but, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's because he was at my house sleeping in a freaking Chase Lounger in my backyard. He was like mortified, and then brought over like a Starbucks gift card, and like, totally made amends. Like, I didn't care. It wasn't his fault, but it was funny how that all, came about. And it was that exact situation. Like, the guy was just renting a bedroom in their house. And we had one other person on our canal, and they're like, because for a while it was legal if you, like you mentioned, I think you said, was it Georgia, or I don't know what state it was. Like, if you live there, you can still have an Airbnb, but if you don't,
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston, sorry. And it was like that for a little while in my hometown, and then finally they opened it up again. So it was like we had a couple of people on our canal that were like, "Oh yeah, we rent out a room," and they're like, "Oh yeah, Joe, this guest, came in and was eating spaghetti with us in the living room, and I'm like, dude, no, thank you. Like, I don't even like going out with people I know, let alone having a stranger. Anyway, that's just me.
He definitely owed you that night stay, though. Like, he should have paid you that night stay because you pretty much Airbnb'd your
yeah, that's true. You need a commission from that.
Yeah, it's like couch surfing, right? Like that's pretty much what
Starbucks is not good enough. What's your nightly fee? Because that's mine right now.
That's funny. I'm gonna hit him up.
That's good. Yeah, you owe me $100.
Exactly.
Well, depending on the bar you could, that's like 4 old fashions.
So I completely derailed the train of thought here, as per normal. You were talking about. You said you have your primary residence. You rent out a room, and then you're kind of going pretty deep into this B&B ace and that path. Is that right? No.
Yeah. So fast forward. So that was our first experience with any kind of short-term rental, and that really was the exception to the rule. We had some amazing guests, and we really had some great reviews, and people come in. We had people that we never saw, and so you always have the good side of the coin, and you always have the little tiny bit of bad, and that's kind of goes with anything. But I thought you guys would appreciate that story for sure. Fast forward about 5 years later, we basically started a company called James Vander Properties. We still own that company, and that is a management company. So, that company, we were able to really focus in on. I wasn't sure the best way to going. I knew that Airbnb was good and that short-term rentals were good, and we ended up going a rental arbitrage route, where basically we were renting out the home from the owner, and with permission from the owner, and making sure we're following all government regulations and stuff, we're short-term renting it. Well, you're on the hook for utilities and rent and the whole nine and everything. And so that can be kind of a tricky way to go. And I do not recommend that. I would give a strong recommendation to not necessarily go the arbitrage route. But we focused in on lakefront homes, Lake Norman specifically here in North Carolina. We saw that it could be 3 or 4 times more than like a uptown Charlotte, if you will. And so that was a focus of ours, and we brought on several homes, and kind of fast forward to now, we have a bunch of different lakefront homes as well as boats that we rent out. So that's an extra source of revenue once the guest books, and we're trying to grow that business as well. But really if you're fast forwarding again, you're here with B&B Ace and understanding that I understand the management side. I understand what it takes to be a good manager, and that's why we're vetting and qualifying people. And bringing them on board. So that's kind of my history there, I guess.
I really want to dig in your boats side of it, because I've never interviewed anybody that talked about renting boats. But for the people that don't know what rental arbitrage is, can you explain that to our listeners?
Absolutely, yeah. So it sounds like you're taking over a country. I hate the term. It's rental arbitrage. It's but it's that's not the case. It just sounds that way. View it as like you're basically renting out a friend's place, and then you're subleasing it. So really you're on. You come to an agreement. Say Ted and I. Ted has a house, and he doesn't want to. He's just looking for the long-term kind of renter. I can be the long-term renter with permission from Ted. I basically am able to sublease it on Airbnb and do short-term rentals. Again, it has to fall into kind of the regulations of the area, but it's got sublease is what it is. And I pay Ted rent, utilities. I take care of the lawn care. Everything that a long-term renter would be responsible for, I take care of. And then I take it basically out of the proceeds of what we bring in. So the idea is that you want to obviously make more than the expenses that are fixed. Usually utilities can go up and down, but overall it's fixed expenses. And that's the reason that I don't care for that kind of business, because you're on the ticket for all of it every month, regardless of how well you do. So does that answer the question?
Totally. And then you mentioned boats. I've never had anybody rent boats out. And when we first kind of had our discovery conversations, you mentioned this. Can you talk a little bit about that business? What kind of costs you're looking at, where you have boats, and what are you getting for them?
Boat B&B, is that a thing?
It is now.
Boat B&B, I like it. I like it.
I'll take a royalty, 5%.
You better get the website before this pops up. You got 2 weeks.
There's already ones that are out there, and even on Airbnb you can rent out a boat. So they've kind of taken over that part of the business.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Not to shoot down your amazing business idea, but So a lot of questions there. Just to kind of unpack it, essentially, we decided that we're on the lake, and all of our houses were lakefront. And so we were like, all right, we're doing well. How would a boat do? And so we looked into what it would take to buy a boat. I can run here. I can give you some numbers just to give you an idea. We basically bought a boat for about $20K. It was a pontoon boat, used, and we're figuring, all right, well, how do we make back that $20,000? Well, we did $10,000 in 3 months during the summer time. So it can definitely be a very lucrative thing. I see Owen's face just got big. Look at that.
I mean, I live on a lake, and well, there's no water in it, so I can't use a boat right now. But kayak, maybe jet ski. But holy crap, $10,000 in 2 months.
About 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. So, we knew that it was now it's super seasonal. So you have like 4 or 5 months where you're making money, and then you're not making anything the whole rest of the year. So you got to keep that in, take that into account. But you can always store a boat, in different places. But for us, we wanted it as an add-on to the night stay. And we were able to charge $400 or $500 a day for the boat. And that's how we get to the $10,000 number, is that you have people who wanted it for multiple days. We give them a little bit of discount, but you end up having 4-figure, I think we had a $4,000 booking on the boat, and they were there for, 3 weeks. I mean, it was our best that we did. But we had 2 boats that same season, and both of them did $10,000 at 2 totally different houses, 2 totally different kind of clienteles. And we really were like within a few $100s of each other on that. So
this is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but I would imagine like insurance has got to be a challenge a little bit with not just arbitrage, but with the boat side of it as well. Is that fair to say?
It's 2 completely, totally different things. So we definitely had renter's insurance, and we made sure that we had short-term rental, insurance. There's a bunch of companies that do that kind of thing. Finding a boat company actually out there that gives you a barefoot charter. Barefoot charter just means that I and our neighbor can drive the boat. So I'm the owner of the boat, but anybody who signs our waiver can basically be the captain. So that's kind of what that I think it's barefoot charter is what you have to have. We can only find a couple companies that would give us the insurance. So that part was tricky to come up with, simply because we don't have a marina. If we had 10 boats, there's 15, 20 companies that we can use. But because when we had 2, there was only literally like 1 or 2 companies that would write it for us. So
my property manager was in Florida last year. He rented a boat, and Austin Compton, mm-hmm. and he went ahead and hit a mega yacht with the front of it. Whoa. And he couldn't get it turned around fast enough, and scratched this multi-million-dollar yacht. And they had to dry dock it, pull up out of the water, and do repairs. And with the insurance that Austin had, it only covered, I don't even remember what dollar amount, I'm not going to even guess, but he had to come out of pocket several thousands of dollars, like $5,000 to $10,000 above and beyond the insurance payment, because they had to dry dock it to repatch and repair it. And so that was his captain experience.
I don't know whose eyes were bigger, mine or Owen's, but we both were like, what?
Oh man,
it was like in Tampa, Florida.
What? Any idea whose mega yacht it was?
No, I have no idea. But I'm sure he would tell you in a heartbeat. He
said
the guy was super
one of the
nice.
Buccaneers or something.
Yeah, so he said the guy was super nice, but they wanted to repair it. He goes, it really wasn't even major. He goes, it was just a little mark, and he goes, but they had to dry dock it just to paint it and get it fixed, and they didn't want the mark. No cash taken there, no cash on the side.
Hey, I've had recently we've talked about this a little bit, but there's been a lot of publicity lately about squatters, and specifically, I know Airbnbs can get targeted. It hasn't been happening all that much in our neck of the woods, but I think around the country, it's getting more and more prevalent. Have you ran into any of those situations, or maybe know any managers that have?
Yeah, I really can't help you with that one. I realize that it's definitely a threat, and it's something that can happen. There's definitely ways to keep your listing from being targeted. And maybe we have a different level of house, I guess, perhaps. than, maybe where you'd want to actually like stay and hope no one finds out. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that you can do to prevent that. I haven't run into anybody who really that's personally affected though.
Yeah, we have a friend, Kat Theo. She's been on the podcast before, but we have to get her on just for that segment. I think, Kat, if you're listening to this, look at the fireworks. She needs to come on. I have no idea. We have this software called Riverside, which it's great, but for some reason there's always like random thumbs up that come on the screen, and then fireworks every now and then. And yeah, there it goes. Anyway, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so do you have anything that maybe hasn't gone great in your business? Because Ted and I, we have a section that we lovingly call
Failing Forward. Dun, dun, dun. And this Failing Forward is brought to you by resimply.com. If you're in the real estate game like I am, you know just how wild it can get managing everything from lead tracking to marketing, sales, and operations. That's exactly where REsimply, an all-in-one software for real estate investors, comes in. It's a lifesaver for thousands of investors out there. What's incredible about REsimply is that it is packed with everything you need. List stacking, driving for dollars, automated drip campaigns, a cold call calling dialer, complete phone system, email management, speed to lead, buyer management, a comprehensive task system, accounting features, and much more. It's like a powerhouse software crafted just for us in the real estate world, eliminating the need for juggling multiple subscriptions and integrations. So check out REsimply if you want to streamline your investing business and start closing more deals. Sign up through resimply.com/Hartman. That's RESIMPLI.com/HARTMAN. And you'll snag 50% off of your first month. Plus, they're going to throw in a 14-day trial. So don't miss out and give it a look. In this segment, this is a learning lesson that you had, something that was a failure in your business and that had a learning lesson that came out of it. So do you have an example of something along those lines?
I do. And can I go out of like real estate world? Because I think I have something that your listeners would appreciate, but
absolutely not. No, not allowed. No,
I mean, I have something in all kinds of areas, but
yeah, Jimmy, tell us.
All right. So yeah, one of the biggest failures I think I had is outside of this, and this was a long time ago. I had a mud run company, so completely different business, still a people business, still managing people, that kind of thing. And we had about 1,800 people come out to an event for our first race, and we netted profit of $60K in a day. And you may say, well, what part of that is a failure? And you'd be right. But what we did is we actually took the money and we put it into a totally different business that we knew nothing about. We were good at hosting events. We obviously had a pretty good turnout for our mud run. We were good at even making obstacles and everything that went in the business. And for whatever reason, we took about half of that and we put it into backpacks. Okay. And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. But so and it's like, why
so you bought a backpack company, or you literally stuffed backpacks full of cash?
Did you get one of those? Did Owen get one of those?
I'm sorry. we need the screen to go like
we don't know
when Ted talks.
Catch with a K.
Yeah.
So, well, we actually stuffed the backpacks with school supplies for kids in need. So, boom, take that. But so it was a Tom's shoe example, and we were really moved by what was happening with the buy one give one kind of movement back then, and so we decided, well, let's do that. We don't want to do mud runs anymore. We made $60K in a day. A lot of work, obviously, leading up to that and everything, but
terrible investment.
we only put in about $1,000 to get that going. So and that's profit. So the actual top end number was 90. But anyway, so
what? Hang on, what? Why? Were you guys, was it just a huge pain in the ass? Or was it just
it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so much work to get it organized and like logistics and making sure everything's there and everybody's there and all that. Like I get it. Events are very delicate to plan.
Yeah, there was a lot of work to it, but hindsight, we should have just hired a manager who could do that, and we could have grown the business to, who knows, we could have been the Spartan race of the, because that's about the same time that we got started.
Yeah, it was like there's like Tough Mudder, that's a national one, right? And then Spartan Race, and yeah, there's several of those out there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and you look back on, you say, hey, why didn't we stay in that? And that's really my learning lesson here, is that find something you're good at and just keep doing it. Because the backpack company failed miserably, and so we realized that, hey, this wasn't our strength. We got into something that we didn't know anything about, and looping it back into kind of investing in the real estate world. How many times you hear people say, I just got into this because I thought it was a good idea? Well, that's not a good idea. And so learn from my failure in a sense that, down the line, kind of the short-term rentals, that's been, something I'm very good at. I'm good at managing and finding managers and recruiting and, networking and bringing those people on. And that's what I need to focus on. Being on podcasts and this kind of thing, it's something I'm good at. I'm not good at the IT or behind the scenes kind of stuff. And so find something that you're good at and continue to just do it, and don't quit on something that's going well. So there's a couple different things you can pull from that, but that's a failure story that with a few lessons learned there. So
my head just goes right back to you rapping and waiting to hear your exit. So we into the podcast, he's going to do an exit song for us.
Is he?
Yeah.
Does he know that?
Jimmy says he likes going to fly. He makes up the lyrics. He's already grooving. See him?
I'm working it in my head, but I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, Jimmy, in your business, what role does your wife play?
So she's a supportive role. What I mean by that is more of an emotional support. There's not much on the day to day that she helps with or does. I can run some ideas by her, but really I have a business partner for a reason, where I can run things by him and make sure that things make sense in a business way. So not sure what more you want with that answer, but she's always supportive of me and has always been there for us for sure. And she was the one who I really believe got our business going back in the day with the Airbnb. So
is the business partner, is that James Vander?
So James Vander is a combination of my real first name, James, and my business partner's last name. And so we created our own person. I've looked up James Vander, and I don't think there's really too many people that are named that. So it's kind of cool that we've kind of created our own person, if you will. But yeah.
They do say that business partnerships are like a marriage, and you guys literally made it a marriage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I took his last name. So
you took his last name, though. I was going to give you that. So with your wife being involved, all you have going on, how do you balance with the work life and family life? You have a young child, so how do you work it all out? And how do you say this is the time for the family, or do you do that, or do you just kind of mix it all in? What's your recipe?
I think the mixing it all in didn't go very well, and that's how I approach things to begin with. And I'm not the best at this now, but I do try to have family time. And Sundays, as an example, is really a non-work day for me. If there's emergencies and things that come in, then I handle them. But that is emergency, where it's once a quarter or something like that. But really, I try to set aside at least that day where there's no business, happening. And I do have I don't know when you'll hear this, but of the recording, I have a 17-month-old. He's about to be 18 months, and he's amazing. He's running and jumping on stuff and climbing, and just keeping up with him is a job in itself. But I think it is very important to separate the two, especially because my wife is not in the business. If she was, it would be very difficult to maybe separate the two. But mixing it together just doesn't work. I want to be the best that I can be to my investors. I want to be the best I can to my business. I want to be the best I can to my family. And it's got to be a devoted focus. So I think just making sure that that you understand that. My wife works full time on Thursdays. She's a marriage and family therapist. And so all day Thursday is a day off for me from work. And I'm hanging out with Oliver. So I have a whole day to myself. That's just the two of us, and we have a great time. It's awesome. So
I do think do think it's important for people in our industry, especially being business owners, that it's important to have that time with the kids, or time block that time with the family, or be a coach, or, take your daughter to concerts that you normally wouldn't go unless you had a daughter. And just find your way of being involved and taking that time. So I think it's an important question to ask, because we all got our way of doing it.
So, Jimmy, do you have any other business incubator ideas that were as great as the backpack one?
I have been kind of a serial entrepreneur at times, where I would love to be like in a incubator, that kind of like space. I feel that I've hit my stride with really the short-term rental piece. And B&B Ace is a newer concept that was launched just last year. That I believe is a really great idea. On the manager side, they want to grow their business. The investor wants to find, they want to find someone who can professionally manage their properties. And so it really just marrying the two and making sure that everything's happy. I don't know that I have any other ideas. I think I have notebooks over here on my bookshelf of just all the different kinds of ideas that I've come up with. The boat, example that just came out of like all right, how can we make more money from our property? And if you're listening to this and you have a short-term rental property, there's other ways to make money. How get creative with it. And I love the creative process. And if you ask me tomorrow, I may have a different answer, where I have a different business idea for you or something else.
Well, that leads into a question I have. When you offer additional services, maybe like a liquor bar or electric scooters or anything in your Airbnb, how do you charge for that? Like for those surcharges?
You can go about it different ways. What we typically do is just go through Airbnb as an example. So on Airbnb, at least as of the recording, I'm sure they're going to change it tomorrow, but as of right now, you can go on there and there's extra services. So you request money. So if you're charging extra for, say the boat as an example, and we talked about that being $500 a day, I would go on there and, you're renting it for 2 days. I would send an invoice through Airbnb, basically requesting money for $1,000. And what is cool about it, again, it may change, but what's cool about it is they don't take any fee out of it at all. Not even a 3% credit card processing. So that $1,000, I get all of it. So that's how we handle extra services, and we make sure that's paid prior to the booking, or prior to them staying, not the booking.
So they request a service, because I have a buddy that has a place over in Houston, and when you go into his garage, he has four-wheelers, he has electric scooters. The four-wheelers have what's that talk with the little boats that you go on down the lakes on those kayaks or canoes, yeah.
Stand-up paddleboard, maybe.
Yeah, so he's got all this stuff, and it's all mounted to the walls in his garages, and they're all zip tied. And then you break the tie, and then he charges you. And I've been meaning to ask him, like how do you charge for those services? So
that's a great way of doing it, and that's having a lot of different amenity options. That is a fantastic idea. So if you guys are listening to this, make sure you're thinking about, hey, what can I do to upcharge? How can I have different things like that? The zip tie idea I love. We have more of an honor system, but we know if people take the boat out because we have a camera out on the dock. I mean, so that's a pretty easy kind of thing. Plus, our zip tie is a lock. And so I don't give you the code to the lock until you sign the waiver and that you paid us. So
cool. Well, Jimmy, this has been a lot of fun. We have one final section that we call the OT with Owen and Ted, where we've got the same questions we ask every guest. We're ready to fire them at you if you're ready to field these bad boys. You up for it?
Yep.
All right. First question for you is, what will the title of your second book be about, or what topic is it going to cover?
Definitely going to cover short-term rentals. Like I referenced, like I referenced earlier, this resource right here, the 7 steps to STR mastery. It's almost like a start of a book. It's got 7 different sections. It's 25 pages, and I'm passionate about the space enough to where I want to write an entire book about it. I enjoy the writing process, and like I wrote my first book. That's something that can happen very quickly. But I would definitely say it's about short-term rental management.
So, Jimmy, it is your podcast, and if it's B&B Ace or about future books, current books, about rap, whatever it is, and you can interview anybody in the world today that's alive, preferably, who is it going to be, and what's the one dying question you want to ask?
I've been thinking about this question, because it comes up from time to time for other people. There's so many great people to interview. I went to Virginia Tech. If you were to look that way in my office here, you'd see all Virginia Tech stuff. But not behind you. I meant like
I can't see it behind me. No.
In front of me. Yeah, you would be looking at it actually. I have Virginia Tech stuff, so I went to Virginia Tech. So big Hokie fan, and so interviewing Frank Beamer would be a great honor. He was the football coach while I was in school there. I went to school from 2004 to 2008. And the question, though, man, I don't know. I'd say overall, what are some things that you do to just provide championship kind of teams? We went to the national championship just once, but we still have the record for the most number of bowl games that were in a row, and that takes a championship kind of attitude and team. And I would love to know how he develops the team that's around him.
Huskers almost have that award, but I'm just joking.
It's been a long time. Okay, well, that's cool. We have a heavy hitting question for you here. We're at your funeral. It's pretty sad. Somebody is walking up to the podium to give a eulogy. Who is it? What are they going to say about you?
Or what rap are they going to do?
I got to really start thinking about that before the end here. I'll keep it going. I think overall I have some great people in my life. I have family and friends and close people. I have an amazing wife. I have an awesome son. I have just people around me, business partners and things. And any one of them could do a great job. But I hope that it's none of them. And the reason that I say that is that I want to make a big impact on someone I haven't met yet. And so I want to have the opportunity in my life for someone who knows me well, because that's what, the eulogy is usually a family member or close friend, but someone I haven't met yet. The reason that I say that is before I die, I want to make sure I'm making a big impact on anybody I come in contact with. I hope that you guys look back on this podcast and say, oh, I had a great time with Jimmy. It was really fun. But I also got some things out of it. So I don't know that I know the individual's name, but I do want it to be someone that I do not currently know.
I like that answer.
I do too. When Jimmy was going into that, I was like, what's he going to say here? And for a second, I thought you were going to say, I hope I just outlive all of them and they're all dead.
I actually thought that's what you were going to say. That's funny.
And I was like, this is going to be good.
Yeah. Jeez, you want to outlive your kid? Brutal.
Okay, so that was good. What mentor in your life has had the biggest impact on you, and how they influence your career or personal growth?
So I got to give a shout out to Jasper Rivers. So I was a part of a course because I wanted to better myself in the short-term rental space. And I got a course called Legends X, and it's still out there. So look it up. It's a great course to take if you want to grow your short-term rental management business. It's with Eric Moeller and Jasper Rivers. But I've had the opportunity over the last year, I guess, of really being part of a mastermind group that Jasper leads. And it's incredible the amount of information and things that you're able to learn about the space. Really, B&B Ace was it came about because of that need, but I needed to run some ideas by somebody who knew it, maybe even better than I. And he was my go-to guy. He helped answer any questions that I had, helped me structure how the business should go, and really helped me launch B&B Ace. So big shout out to Jasper Rivers.
Jasper.
That's awesome. Okay, last question for you. How can our listeners support you? And is there anything you're looking for in your business right now?
Absolutely. So we talked about, we are still looking for an investor. So if someone's listening and says, hey, I love what Jimmy's doing. Thank you. I love Jimmy. Thank you. I'd love to give him money. Thank you. We would love to have you guys on board. So there's a lot of things that happen on the marketing side. We're doing very well as far as bringing on new clients and different things, but we are still looking for kind of that second round of investment. And you can definitely reach out to me at Jimmy, Jimmy, at bnbace.com. And also the best resource and place for you to go, if Ted figures it out, is the link in the description or in the comments or wherever.
Show notes.
But bnbace.com is a great resource. That's Bravo November Bravo Alpha Charlie Echo.com.
When you were talking in the third person about Jimmy, I was reminded of that Seinfeld episode. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there's a guy that always refers to himself in the third person. His name's Jimmy. And he's like, Jimmy jumps high. Jimmy fell down. No good for Jimmy. Oh, somebody that catches this episode will hear this, damn it, and give me a laugh or something.
I mean, Owen should just really do a reference to Seinfeld in every episode.
You think so?
I mean,
I can work it in.
Yeah, I think you probably could.
Okay.
Well, Jimmy, I first met you because you reached out to me because I run the local REIA group. You're trying to expand into the Omaha district. Our conversations led into talking about obviously the B&B Ace, your book, and I thought this would be a good reference for our listeners. So I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. Look forward to doing more business in the future. And with that, Owen Dashner, will you see us out?
On behalf of Ted Kosh, REIA Radio, and the absent Dennis Bertrand, and Devin
without a mic.
Yep,
Devin's
over there. Give everybody give him a shout out. I'm Owen Dashner, and you have been listening to Jimmy Beatbox is my buy box. Sweitzer signing off.
Owen Dashner, man. Always good to see you. It's always fun being at the new studio.
Happy Friday, bro.
It is Friday, man. And then if you're listening, happy Wednesday, by the way. But with that, dude, we've had some great local events. We had probably one of our biggest turnouts ever for our meetup with Jose Pena, which was one of our top first 10.
I couldn't make it, but it looked awesome. I'm sure it was.
Full crowd. And then also we just got done to luncheon today. And yeah, I mean, there's probably only like 3 or 4 open chairs.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's fun.
Especially during almost summer. I mean, like a lot of people kind of check out on, there's all kinds of sports and kids stuff going on and just activities in general. The city kind of comes to life during this spring and summer. So it's kind of tough to get your events attended well during that time, right? We've talked about this a bunch over the years.
Typically, like if I had a really strong turnout for my local event, my main meetup, our luncheon has a big turnout. But I told everybody as they were walking in today, because it was like a slow trickle coming in. I was like, just so you guys know, it is 93 degrees outside. Nobody's probably going to show up today. But we'll see, because we had a strong meetup. And in the end, it wasn't the most busiest, but we had a great luncheon. It was a good event, great conversations.
Yeah. What made you I've been curious. So you're one of the few, you have a monthly meetup at night.
Yep.
And then you have your monthly luncheon. And obviously we have the podcast, but what made you decide to do the luncheon?
And we're doing more webinars now too. But the luncheon, the whole idea behind that was to create community. I'm part of different networking groups, and I always felt that, you can only have one realtor, one banker, one this, one that in your networking group if you're a part of most of these paid groups. And what if that one person just sucks or you don't connect with them? There's no reason that there should be a limit on that. So my idea here was it's an open group with you don't need to be a member of our organization. Everybody's welcome. It's real estate focused. Everybody talks. There's no speaker to take away the light. The idea is that you get to know everybody in the room. And after that event, everybody just talks and communicates and trades cards. And it's like, oh, you got this, or I'm looking for this. And yes. And I just feel like that is missing in the networking community, where I don't want to be committed to go to something every single week or, month, if I don't want to, or I don't want to feel guilty. And I don't want to have to pay for it, either necessarily. And we have our paid group. But the other aspect of it that helps is like people are nervous to come to an event that has 120, 125, 150, 200 people at it, depending on our event that we've had. And people are nervous to walk in a room and not know anybody. Like, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to sit with? Well, when you're in that small luncheon, you meet people, you get to know people. And that way, when you're going to the bigger event, you're like, oh, I met them at the luncheon. I can sit at their table. So it creates a comfort and makes it people, I think, feel more inviting to come to the larger events.
So kind of small group versus large group, and whatever your comfort level is with that. I like it, and I just, I'm very type A, so it's hard to wrap my mind around like what the difference is between the two, because it's just like it's people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I understand that it can be intimidating for some to come to large groups like that, like 100+ people. But to me, I'm just like, what's the difference? There's still people there. You can find you're probably more likely to find somebody that you know in a crowd of 100 than you are in a crowd of 30.
Yeah, one's a speaker event and one's a get to know the members event.
Yeah, that's
the
a
best way to
good
put it.
point. And I like the REIA luncheon because it offers kind of more of a an opportunity to sit at a table with people and talk about stuff that's going on currently, as opposed to like digesting what a speaker is saying and then trying to cram in a bunch of networking before everybody takes off. You know what I mean? So I like the vibe of the luncheons you put together. I think they're good.
You have better attendance at the luncheons than you do at the main events. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it depends on the time of year. Like
Yeah.
I have a ton of
golf
sport
and everything.
I have golf and my kids' sports and like all it's family stuff. It's just life. You know,
Yeah.
I'm in that little segment of life where you don't have a ton of free time. Oh man, Ted, I know you've been through this, but I wanted to share my dramatic experience this week with something that I think any self-employed, especially, and self-employed person and also real estate investor has always probably in the back of their mind, and that is an IRS audit.
Oh, I was wondering if you were going there right now.
Yeah, so I got the dreaded letter in the mail from the IRS probably about a month ago. And basically they said, okay, 2021, we are going to audit your basically your file. And it's scheduled for whatever, it was like May 15th this week, May 14th. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Like, I mean, I get letters from the IRS and usually it's just like stuff to do with, just taxes and filing taxes and, this is due or that's due or whatever. So I wasn't, my alarm bells didn't go off right away. And then I opened the letter and they're like, oh, you're, I don't remember what it said, but it's basically like, you're getting audited. And I was just like, I remember the world stopping. You know how they always say like, where you were when JFK got shot or like when the Challenger blew up or whatever, some traumatic event, World Trade Center getting knocked down. Like, I remember exactly where I was at the time when I was opening that letter. And I'm like, oh my God, like, it's an irrational fear because, I hire a public accounting firm, a good one in town here, to do my taxes and tax strategy and prep and all that and bookkeeping. And I keep pretty good records and I have everything since about 2020 or 2021 has been digital. So I don't have paper copies of stuff that I retain. I scan everything and all that, right?
Yeah, I'll vouch for you. I've seen you take pictures when you
Yeah.
have your receipts.
And so I'm like, okay, I kind of am freaking out a little bit, internally. And so I contact my CPAs and I'm like, hey, what now? Like, what does this mean? And what do I need to do? I have no idea. I've heard horror stories, including from you. And I'll ask you about your experience with this too. But like, they're like, okay, look, here's the deal. You hired us for audit protection, which, by the way, anybody listening to this, you can do that if you have a tax prep firm. And by the way, get a good one. Don't skimp. Don't be like, oh, this is the cheapest tax guy I found. Huge mistake. Huge mistake. So you get what you pay for with tax strategy and tax prep. Yeah. So I call Jim, my CPA, and I'm like, so what do I need to do here? And he's like, all right, here's the deal. On the day of, we meaning my tax preparers are going to meet with this IRS auditor, and we're going to go through basically all of your work papers. That's what they call it when you provide them with records of your tax record keeping, and they basically will go through anything they have. But I don't know what caused this, what triggered it. Like, I'm flying blind.
That was my next question.
I have no idea what happened in 2021 to make this stand out above any other year. Because this is my very first audit that I've been through, and I've been in real estate since 2005. So,
long time.
It's been a good run.
Yeah.
So finally, my it's kind of like jury duty. Eventually you're going to get it. So
jury duty is fun though.
Is it?
I
have a different experience than that.
We'll trade stories later.
Okay. So anyway, so the meeting happens and they're like, here's what they say. They're like, all right, meetings from 9 to 11. That's what time we're going to officially meet. And I'm like, okay, do I need to be ready? What do I need to have with me? Like, do I need to have all my records, et cetera? And they're like, you don't need to be there, but definitely, keep your phone on. And if they have if she has questions, we'll call you and you'll need to, kind of like provide some commentary. And I'm like, all right, cool. And inside I'm kind of like, oh my God, I'm freaking out, And I say, all right, fine. That's cool. So this was 9:00, like 2 days ago, and or 3 days ago, and they're like, yeah, 9 to 11. That's when we're meeting with her. Keep your phone on, this and that. And I'm like, all right, fine. So 9:03, my phone rings, and it's my, it's my CPA firm phone, phone number, and I'm like, oh God. So I answer it. And they're I'm on speaker, with an IRS auditor and my two CPAs that are in the room. And I was on the phone for 2.5 hours. So I thought it was just going to be like, oh, hey, can you clarify what account this was out of? Or like, here's a question about a property or whatever. Nope. It was every single question you could possibly think of. And here's what they hit you with. It's everything you could possibly imagine to do with money. It's like, do you have access to cash? I'm like, yes. Okay, well, how much? And I'm like, well, I don't keep much in the house. And they're like, what's not much? And I'm like, I don't know, like less than $500. Depends. Like what? It depends on what's going on. I'm like, this is ridiculous in my head. I don't want to like start off on a bad foot here, but and then they're like, would you be able to ask someone for money if you needed it? And I'm like, well, of course, but doesn't mean they're going to give it to me. I'm like, of course I can ask somebody for money. I'm just like, what is, and she's kind of like, so come to find out, she's like 6 months into this job. Oh, so she's very new. Yeah. And she like, to the point where she did not know what a single member LLC was. Okay. She
shut the front door.
She did not know what a cost segregation study was. And to the point where they were going through this and she asked my CPAs the question. She goes, what is this? Because I did a big like cost segregation study in 2021 on a property I bought. And she's like, what is this $270,000 deduction here? I don't like, what is this tied to and this and that? And they're like, that's a cost seg. And she's like, what? And so they had to like handhold her through a cost segregation study. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to bring that to my trainer or my supervisor's attention because I don't like this is new to me. And she goes, this is funny. She goes, this seems like a really good benefit for taxpayers. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But anyway, so all week I'm like freaking out about this, right? I'm just like on high alert, right? I'm just constantly on, and it's amazing the amount of stress you can carry around, right?
Yes.
And I'm pitting out a shirt during this 2.5 hours. Like I showered, got ready, I'm all clean and everything, and by the time I'm done, I have just stress sweat like stank about me. And so anyway, like we go through this, and she's just like, okay, do you use PayPal? Do you use Venmo? And I'm like, yeah, of course, like yes. And she's like, do you ever accept payments through there? What are they for? Do you report them? And I'm just like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Like all this stuff. And it's so, and she's like, okay, what about your, how many bank accounts do you have? Do you have a safe deposit box? What do you keep in the safe deposit box? Do you have a safe at your house? Do you keep cash? And I'm like, I mean, it's alarming. That's the type of stuff they're asking. There's no hiding, and you can't be like, I'll get back. I mean, you can say, I don't have that in front of me or whatever. If you don't, and look up whatever they're asking. But I mean, like, you can't hide here. I mean, it's very, very difficult, but it was very stressful about like you would expect. Fortunately, for me, it was, I had no idea what this was going to mean. I didn't know if something didn't match up, if it was going to be several $100s, several thousand, several 10,000. I had no idea what was even at question here, right? And so here was a gotcha for me, and I want to bring this up. This is why I'm bringing this up. Well, it's also entertainment value, but so either I missed, and that's probably what happened, is I missed submitting a K1 or excuse me, a 1099 interest. A 1099 INT document, and I think I either missed sending that to my CPA because I get a whole bunch of these, or they missed it, one of the two, and it doesn't matter at this point. But it was like $3,000 1099, and I missed it. And so that obviously is going to trigger something in their software, and they have algorithms that basically look at variances between one year and the next. And that's another thing I found out. So I missed that. So that's a $3,000 piece of income that didn't end up being accounted for, and I own that. I have to. And then the other one was the other big question was buying a vehicle in 1 year, and we've talked about this before, even as a golden nugget. And you can deduct the purchase, and disclaimer, asterisk here. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an insurance agent. I'm not a licensed attorney. I'm basically nobody you should listen to at all for anything, unless you're just looking for some sophomoric humor.
You are a certified storyteller.
I am. that I am. So I don't know it was so just bewildering to be a part of this thing. I'm just pacing around my basement, and I have no idea what she's going to ask me next. I'm just on like high alert. You know what I mean? Like I you know my memory. I'm like a goldfish. I don't remember like 2 weeks ago when she's asking me about stuff from like 3 years ago. So the vehicle thing. So when you are a licensed real estate professional, reps is a real estate professional status is the kind of like designation. And she's like, do you I don't know if this is how they put it, but I was like, do you identify as a real estate professional? Like, or whatever. And I'm like, yes. It was just funny to me in my head because I'm 12-year-old boy humor. But, I'm like, so what happened was I bought a vehicle in 2021, right? And you can, if it's over 6,000 pounds, I think that, fact check me here, 6,000 pounds, you can deduct it if you're a real estate professional against, basically you can take all your depreciation that you would normally have on the vehicle spread over multiple years and take it all at once. It's almost like a cost seg when you have a work vehicle,
and that's changing year by year.
Yeah.
So like last year was 80% of the value could be written off.
Thank you.
This year is 60%.
So what happened was, I believe it was a situation where I took the purchase and basically used that almost like a rammed forward depreciation, and then also claimed mileage, which evidently you can't do, and I didn't know. So you can't have business miles, and so like with your vehicle, you can drive it. Let's say 90% of your time is spent driving it for business, and the other 10% is like running kids to school and soccer games and whatever.
Unless you have a separate vehicle that you can claim.
Yes.
Yep.
And so like my wife has a vehicle, and we always use that to take the kids to school, and she runs them around everywhere like an unpaid Uber driver, and I just use my truck basically for almost everything real estate related. I go to go to work in it. I go to the podcast in it. Whatever. And so you can't take those both in the same year is the message here. So if you buy a vehicle, a work vehicle, and again, I'm not a CPA and any of that stuff, but if you buy it in the same tax year, if you buy it in a tax year, you cannot deduct your mileage for business in that same tax year. And I didn't know that. And you can make the case here, well, your CPA should have known that. And yes, they should have, but whatever. I'm thrilled because the end result is I owe like $1,670 or something like that, more than what I had paid. And then like $300 of interest. So it ends up being like $2,000.
The only scary part about it is if they find that you did make mistakes, it opens it up that they most likely will do a second audit for the next year.
So that was my biggest worry, is like if this was just going to be like a daisy chain situation where they're like, okay, well, you know that's what happened here. Let's just see the last 7 years, or like all of the last 7 years.
To my knowledge, it goes year by year from the people I've talked to. They're like, hey, if this doesn't work, then they go the next year if there's big enough things that they find.
So this goes on for a couple of days, and here's what I didn't know also. I thought this was just a phone call, right? Like I thought they were just conference call and talking about all this stuff. No, she was sitting in their office literally all day long looking at only my shit. Like she had all my files. There was like 500 pages of stuff they dumped on her desk. She went through all of it, and then also the whole next day. And then finally, like last night, my CPA calls and he's like, hey, good news, bad news. Good news is, the audit's over. The bad news is, the 1099 that was missed, and then the mileage thing is you're going to get dinged for that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's makes sense to me. I didn't even remember either one of those situations. So I'm just so relieved today. Like I can't even tell you how much of a relief this is to be through the end of it.
So this old fashioned tastes really good.
Oh my God, you have no idea, dude. I am in such a good mood today because of all this. So I know you went through something like this. Would you mind like kind of summing it up? Sorry, I gave a really detailed version of that, but
mine was in 2007. So there was no conference call that happened at that point. And at that point, I worked for I was a partner in a company called Omaha Nightlife. We promoted bars and restaurants. We were not making a ton of money, and
shocker.
But I was traveling from city to city. I was putting a ton of miles on my car, and I had mile logs. So I literally printed out a sheet, and then how many miles I drove that day for work. I wrote it and circled it, and that was my mile log for every day. And then I used iCal at the time, the Apple Calendar, and I had all my meetings documented of where I was going. So when I submitted everything, I said, I printed out my calendar. I printed out, I had the copies of my mile sheet, and I had logbooks.
Yeah, and by the way, just side note here, they will ask you that. That is a specific question that I was asked. Do you keep a mileage log? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yes. And you have to have basically, is it business or personal? Who did you meet with? Where did you go? That's more or less what it is. And they have digital ones of these, and like what you're talking about, a lot of people do that. They'll just keep it in a notebook or whatever, and be like, drove 7 miles today to meet so and so for coffee, or drove to this property or whatever. But you got to have that, and just in case they come back and they say, okay, let me see your records.
Unless the vehicle's licensed under your business, and you just write off the vehicle, and you're not writing off the gas and miles.
Well, yes, right, yeah. Like if yes, correct. Yeah, if you're not trying to claim the business mileage, then you don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I don't do that anymore. Ever since I put the vehicles under my business name, I just say, hey, it's a business vehicle, and because I have a Mustang on the side, they say, well, we can say that you have a personal vehicle. And my wife's vehicle is definitely the family vehicle, and we use that quite a bit. But the Mustang's the other family vehicle.
So for those of you not in the know here, Ted has a serious car fetish, and what he's describing right now, he's describing it in a way that makes him sound like he's doing this just for the good of the family and tax purposes.
It is for the good of the family.
It is not at all why you have a side Mustang. Don't give us that crap.
When my kids get an A Sunday test, they ask to go spin some cookies or in the parking lot.
Oh, so that's why you bought it.
Yeah,
it's for the kids.
Yeah, it's for the kids.
Yeah, the Mustang's for the kids. Got it. Okay, yeah.
But my audit was different. I never had any communication at all. I bought the audit service that H&R Block had at the time. Because 27,
you said that with a straight face too.
Yeah, and she fought for me. She was a lifelong tax lady, and that service just paid for the audit itself. It didn't pay for covering the mistakes or anything that was done. But in the end, mine went over 6 months. And I think you can do 5. You can contest it like up to 5 times. Don't quote me on that number, but it was several times. And my lady's like, you got mile logs, you have all your meeting schedules, like this. Everything makes sense to me. In the end, they were only fighting me on 2 things. They were fighting me on write-offs for lunch meetings, and all my mileage. Mm-hmm. And they actually disallowed 100% of my mileage because my logs didn't say that. I in the logs they said it had to say what business I was conducting and what sales came out of that out of those meetings.
It's so ridiculous.
And I'm like, I'm meeting with a client that does advertising with us. I'm documenting the venue I'm going to in the name because I did bar advertising. And restaurant advertising.
Yeah, you're like, what do you want? My TPS reports on like what the hell? What do you care?
They pay a monthly advertising fee.
Yeah.
Like they have a year contract. Like I don't understand. So they disallowed all my mileage. They disallowed I think all my food and meetings also because I didn't say what came out of the meetings in my logs. So in the end, at the time though, I mean, I think I paid $7,000 or $8,000. And I had to put a payment plan on because I was broke, It's like, I was broke. It's like that was like the most devastating thing in the world that ever happened to me. I'm like, I cannot believe this just happened.
I honestly think the worst thing out of that was just living with this hanging over your head for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the amount of stress that I've been under recently, and I cannot imagine stringing that out for months and months at a time. I was so glad. In fact, I was telling my wife, I was like, I wish it was like Monday or whatever, and I'm like, I have never wished it was Thursday more than I do right now, just so I know what I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? Because it was just such a I had no idea. I had no idea what to expect. And anyway, point of all this is, get your records together, keep a mileage log if you're going to deduct mileage, and just, hey, reach out to me if you want to know, if you have specific questions about this, because it's scary and it's stressful. Even if you keep really good records and you just don't know. It's a weird deal when people crawl up your butt and look at all your finances.
Why does cash on hand matter, and where in the line does it say how much cash in hand is it on your taxes?
It doesn't, but they want to know. They want to know if you're hoarding cash or other assets. And by the way, if you have crypto accounts, they're really interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I have like a Binance account, which I fully disclosed. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I've never pulled one dime out of that. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's like if you want to see how much of a loser I am, I will print my account activity out of that, because my my crypto account's like a third of the size it was when of the money I put into it. But anyways, yeah, I don't the cash thing, and they're like, do you have a safe deposit box? And I'm like, that's none of your business. And in my head, I'm like, that has nothing to do with the taxes I pay, but evidently it does, because it's a standard question on their questionnaire.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I had to come back after that. So I had to give them every single business and personal account that I had, checking, savings, credit cards, all of it, all the account numbers. I had to give my wife's, all of our IRAs, and all of our investment accounts and all that. You got to give them everything. I mean, you can't say, no.
Such an invasion of privacy.
I know. I mean, you feel violated for sure. You feel really violated after it, because you're just like, there's no hiding.
Ugh. Well, I'm glad that you came out pretty unscathed.
I am very well worth it. The tuition is, something I'm definitely willing to pay to never do this again. Hopefully. It sucked.
Hopefully. Knocking on wood for you.
Yeah. Buddy. So sorry about that, listener. But we had to. I just thought it was interesting what I went through, and hopefully you catching this episode don't have to go through this anytime soon, because it's not fun. But there is a silver lining. A lot of times there's things that pop up in the IRS computer system. Like I mentioned earlier, they have algorithms that basically look at, from year over year, if your income varies wildly, or if there's some stuff that's like a really large expense on a property, that'll stick out. And they'll be like, my supervisor said that this is a really abnormally large, expense. What's this all about? And then you got to explain it. And you'll be like, well, that was a, tenant that trashed the place, and, it's capital expense versus, operating expense. Those are two different things. They're treated differently. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, yeah, hopefully you got something out of this, if nothing else, entertainment and laughing at my misery. But today's episode, James Sweitzer, also known as Jimmy, great guest, really funny, rapper, author.
We couldn't give him a rap.
We couldn't. You're going to have to Google that stuff, because he's got some gems out there.
You were loving listening to that stuff.
Oh, my God.
When you were doing your research.
Yeah. So, but really cool, though. He's got a book called Shut the Five Up, and you'll have to just Google that, check it out.
Very Christian themed book.
Yes, and it's a quick read, 114 pages, I believe he said it was. And he's got a really cool business where he basically does a lot of the dirty work for you if you are a short-term rental owner. So he'll go out and find specific cities and dig up the best property managers for short-term rentals in the city. And he's got it's called B&B Ace. So BNB Ace. If you Google that, it'll explain more. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
And I met him because he actually reached out to me, being the local REIA owner. And so he had some clients that were hit him up for finding
Oh, is that right?
finding a manager here. And so he wanted to talk to me about some opportunities, who's doing what in town, who's doing a good job, who's not doing a good job. So everybody then.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So he was basically doing a little background check.
Yeah, he was vetting me.
Huh.
And then he's like, hey, so who do you use? Who do the people use? So I gave him a list. I was like, here's all the people doing Airbnb management that I'm aware of in town. So I gave him all those names. He actually has an interview process that he does with every one of those people, which is a couple hours long. And after he vets them, he picks like his top 2, and then he will get commissioned on giving that suggestion to the potential clients. And then once he gets one client established, then he starts doing advertising marketing to get further business. So he's going to market and advertise with our local REIA. Once he gets his, he vets and figures out what his final decisions are for the local Airbnb hosts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Or managers, I should say, not hosts, but.
Well, Jimmy's a really funny, charismatic guy. I think you're going to really get some
like,
laughs.
He's like, everything's on the table. Jimmy, can you give us a rap about REIA Radio that we can play on the way out?
About REIA Radio.
Yeah.
Man, you put me on the spot. Like I realized that you saw some of my stuff. Put it in the comments. The people enjoy it. It takes me forever to come up with that kind of thing.
Eminem can come up with it like that. Come on, oh man, Jimmy let me down.
Jimmy let Ted down.